So the first question is, how did you become a non-feminist woman?
I would actually say my parents brought me onto that track. My father they're both actually egalitarians, and they just stayed at work. They didn't really fight in front of my little brother and I, which I think maybe have been a good thing or a bad thing. They both worked very hard. My mum was a teacher for the special behavioural kids, and my dad was a business owner. He owned a bottle shop in Australia called Bailey's and Bailey's. And they just, when it came to the financial situation, it wasn't his or hers. It was just basically, if the kids need something, mum would usually do it. And then with the holidays, my dad would probably do it. So it was split 50-50. Unfortunately, my mum passed away when I was quite young. I think I was about 21.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that their relationship is what we would call sort of the old age. My grandparents were also part of the reason why I didn't really become on the feminist train as well. So I was raised by old age relationships.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So they had traditional relationships, your grandparents, or?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, my grandparents were very traditional. Both my grandmother didn't work. They were homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
So they did the cooking, the cleaning, they did the parties. And my grandfather, so my dad's dad was a butcher, and my mum's dad was a lecturer at university.
Okay.
So the men would work and the women would obviously do their traditional roles. It was a very traditional household with my grandparents. Not so much with my parents, but mum was more hands-on with us than my dad. Our dad worked all the time, but he was also a very hands-on father as well. He wasn't an absent father at all.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on traditional gender roles in general?
Ooh, I think it depends on if both parties are happy.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship with my husband is both. I'm a stay-at-home mum. It just works out that I'd be more hands-on with my daughter, and he's a truck driver for Australia. He does interstate, so he does the working. I do the cooking, the cleaning, the looking after the little one. He does the finances, that kind of side of things. And I'm very happy. Our situation was like that. What we planned that well before we had our child.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you talk about your roles before you bring a child into the world, or even if you don't want a child and you want to you want to get married, you should really talk about it before committing,
Okay.
and that way you'll be able to smooth things out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you believe that we live in a patriarchy? Do you believe that we live in a patriarchy?
No, absolutely not. Not maybe in the past. Like when I say the past, I'd say about maybe in the mid 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely do not live in a patriarchy at all. I definitely do not agree with that. However,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the first world countries are very lucky to have gotten out of it.
Okay.
I would say that, I would say where I'm from, which is Australia, we are definitely not in a patriarchal country. No.
Okay. What are your thoughts on men's rights activists, MRAs?
I haven't actually looked quite into that. Unfortunately, the Facebook groups
Mm-hmm.
are just a whole bunch of men whinging about the women.
Mm-hmm.
They have accepted non-feminist women,
Mm-hmm.
but even then, it was a political debate every day, all day. So I got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The real MRAs that I have met, I think they're doing very well for their men. I think that there should be more of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Facebook group pages should be shut down. No social media.
Okay. It was a political debate like what? Like what type of political debate?
It wasn't much of a political debate in that it was just. I think I understand they needed to get their feelings out, but at the same time, they also, I think, they could have been a little bit more discreet as well.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
the females are
No,
not
they're
like that, but
mean. Definitely, the men are often quite mean. Okay, I understand that. Yeah, but yeah, the real
yeah,
MRAs do important things as well. So yeah, it's a mixed bunch.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There are important, good MRAs, but there are also a lot of mean men. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on intersectionality? Intersectionality is where so for example, they say each group has certain privileges and disadvantages in society.
Oh, I don't really have much of a say on it because it does exist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, homelessness is on the rise. So
Mm-hmm.
let's go for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I yeah, I haven't really thought about
No,
that.
well, like they would say, different races, like white people have an advantage. Men are more advantaged than women. For
Ah, okay. Pay wage
heterosexuality.
gap, all that stuff.
Huh?
Pay wage gap,
No,
all
no,
that
not
stuff.
pay wage gap. More
Ah,
like privileged. Like where they say check your privilege.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, I do believe that there are classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, but I I think it's not as blunt as most people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm from, nobody really cares.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody actually really asks. What are your classes?
Mm-hmm.
They just, I mean, I married a husband who unfortunately has parents who came from a lower class.
Mm-hmm.
I'm known as an upper class kid, I suppose you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, I don't know. That question really stumped me. I haven't really thought about that, to be
You
honest.
never
But
thought
I do
about
know.
intersectional feminism. You never heard of intersectional feminism?
No.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay, yeah. Um, okay. What are your thoughts on hypergamy?
What is hypergamy?
Okay. The idea that women tend to marry men who based on or not marry tend to choose mates based on their socioeconomic um class. So women tend
Oh,
to discriminate on uh how rich somebody is, or
oh yeah, that definitely happens.
yeah.
Yes. It's more on females than it is with males. Males don't really care.
Mhm.
No, I've seen that,
Mhm.
especially with some of my former friends.
Mhm.
Um, Females are way more interested in how much the men earn.
Mhm.
They'll even ask, "How much do you earn a year?
Mhm.
What's your, what's your credit score?" Because
Mhm.
we actually do have credit scores in Australia. It's how you get a house, how you get a car, that kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
And if that male doesn't reach to her idea of her figures, she'll
Mhm.
just drop him.
Okay.
So, and unfortunately, nothing. It's on the rise,
Mhm.
and it shouldn't be. But some women are quite shallow in that respect.
Okay. Um, what are your thoughts on male reproductive rights?
I think every male has a right to reproduce
No,
as long as. Oh,
okay, you're pro-choice for women in terms of abortion, right?
yes.
Okay. Do you think that men should have the option to opt out of parenthood? Let's say a guy doesn't want to be a
Oh,
parent, uh
yes.
and he finds out.
Yes.
You think within the
Yeah,
early
absolutely.
stages he should have the choice to opt out.
Absolutely. Takes two to tango. If it takes two to tango to go in, it takes two to tango to go out.
Okay. Right. So you would see abortion as the equivalent of a man opting out of parenthood, in a sense. Equality would be if both have the choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If a woman has the choice of aborting their child just because she doesn't want it,
Mm-hmm.
then the man has the option to opt out if the woman wants to keep it and he doesn't.
Right. Okay. So this is a
Yeah.
reproductive right that men need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you know anyone who in your life who has been affected by feminism or feminist culture? Do you have any stories of someone who who's been in a situation which makes you think, yeah, this is why feminism is not entirely correct? Also,
I'm not going to mention it because it might go public, but
oh,
I do
okay,
know somebody, and
yeah,
she's very close to me.
uh-huh,
Um, she unfortunately is blinded to the fact that males are victims of abuse.
mm-hmm,
I can kind of understand why, because she was also a victim of abuse herself,
mm-hmm,
multiple times by multiple men.
mm-hmm,
But I showed her the stats, I've showed her reports, I've even showed her real life stories of men. And unfortunately, she just doesn't have that same sympathy on the males. And in the actual fact, her exact words were, well, if they claim to be stronger, why didn't he do anything?
mm-hmm,
Um, the sympathy for male victim abuse, I have seen quite a bit.
mm-hmm,
I've actually hacked off I shouldn't say that, sorry, I've actually cut off a close friend of mine
mm-hmm,
because her treatment towards her husband I did not agree with it. I've spoken to my husband about it. Uh, she married my husband's best friend,
mm-hmm.
so it would have affected him, and they agreed with me. But yeah, she's just I think I'm actually surrounded by feminists, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
but they also know where I stand. They respect that, so
Mm-hmm.
I respect them.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start acting out, then no,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're done.
Okay. So, what would you want? Like, how would you sum up your views on feminism? What would you want the world to know about feminism? What do you feel about feminism? How would you describe?
Feminism is a lot more toxic than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
However, from the social media like Instagram, Facebook, they're the only social media I'm on. I'm actually quite happy to see women speaking out against other women, especially a celebrity who is well beloved. Her name was Ellen DeGeneres.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and instead of the women were like, oh, she's trying to be like the men, she's trying to do this, she's trying to do that. The moment she was found out to be a toxic
Okay.
woman,
Yeah.
she was done. So I think that we're definitely not going to win against the feminism movement. Unfortunately, they're just getting stronger.
Right.
But we are waking up to the feminist toxicity that is going on,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm very happy about.
Okay.
So yeah.
And how would you improve feminism if you were to look at feminism and say, okay, we can change it can we should change this and this and this? What would you change about feminism to make it something that is good, or
Don't. Oh, well, actually, that's a good question because I've actually spoken about this with my dad, who, like I told you, is anti-feminist.
he's
I
an
think
anti-feminist?
feminism.
Sorry, your
I
dad
think
is an
no, no.
anti.
My dad's anti-feminist. No, he's not a feminist.
Oh, okay.
I was speaking to my dad, and I said to him that I think the feminists are doing this as payback
Mm-hmm.
for the patriarchal movement that we had back in the 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
And my only words to that is, you guys are being exactly what your grandparents and your great grandparents were fighting against. You guys have gone backwards. Move forwards. Work with your men
Mm-hmm.
rather than against the men. If you work with them and you prove that you're just as strong as they are, without being emotional, without using blackmail, without needing to hit them or being physical violent against them, they will take you more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling them to be less emotional, but I'm saying be more intellectual than emotional. Yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts on being called a pick-me girl, for your opinion?
Ooh. I mean, they can call me that. I got picked. I'm married. I've got a kid. So, to be honest, I could just say, well, I got picked.
Yeah.
It used to bother me a bit, but then I realized that most of them who called me a pick-me girl is not married, doesn't have kids. Most of the men that go out on them is usually just teasing them behind their backs and all that. So I just let it go. Basically, it's just karma for them.
Okay.
But I think for me, it's a relatively new, what do you call it? A new slang.
Yeah. It is, yeah.
I have heard of it, but because it's so new, it doesn't really affect me that much.
Okay. What would you say are the most important men's issues at the moment?
Women against men's violence. It's starting to become glorified in movies, in TV shows. Actually, it's always been glorified. It just hasn't been picked up until recently. And I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say this, so I'll just explain it. But where women use, oh no, here we go. The parental rights for fatherhood when they split or they divorce. In Australia, 99%. Doesn't matter if you're a bad mother, doesn't matter if you're an abusive mother, doesn't matter if you're basically stabbing your child, the child always goes to the mum. Always. The father could have proof, the father could have video proof, what do you call it, voice proof, any proof that you can think of, and he's still losing court, unfortunately. In Australia, fathers do not have any rights in parental court whatsoever, and if they do, it is very, very rare, and there is still a losing end. Like they'll lose the house, but they still get the child. Like that's not a win, unfortunately.
Okay. And this is just based on bias. This is based on why is that happening? Is it the law, or is it that the people are biased?
Oh, it's the law. It's the Australian. Australia is one of the most feminist countries. Where men are starting to have absolutely no rights at all. You walk down the city, let me put it this way, you go into Highley Street, which is very well known for its bars and fights and all that stuff. A man punches a woman out of self-defense, he goes to prison. A woman chases a man down the street with a pair of heels because she's drunk, and it's immediately, oh, what did he do? So it's bias out of first person view. I've seen it, I've witnessed it. One of my husband's friends have been through it, which is why I've always said to pretty much everyone, if my husband and I ever divorce, I will put in 50-50 for the child thing. Like, no excuses.
Yeah, 50-50, shared custody.
Yeah, shared custody, that's the word. I went blank.
No, that should be the default, I think.
It should be.
Okay, let me see. Do you have a YouTube channel or anything? What type of activism do you do?
No, okay. I'm not. If we try to, I mean, Australia, unfortunately, isn't. I wish they'd do more rallies, but Australia's very quiet on their rallies. They're not as vocal. They're just chilled, kind of beings. But we're going back, kind of chilled. Like we used to be really chilled country where everyone's equal, everyone has equal rights. And now the feminists have just bloody ruined that. And the politicians are just soaking it up because, it's a fad. But if if there are ever those rare rallies, I'd go to them. But our rallies in Australia don't really mean anything. They're not. Yeah, that's the only thing that I actually love about the US is that their rallies actually have a voice, and it actually goes through. Whether it goes through the Parliament or not, it all depends, or the White House, I should say. But you guys are way more vocal than we are, way more active. I only wish we could have that kind of activism.
Yeah. So you consider yourself an egalitarian, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, those are all the questions. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, because we have some time. If there's anything else you want to just say about feminism that, that's on your mind.
No, I actually haven't really. I've tried to distance myself from it because of the toxic. Just the people were so toxic.
Okay, anti-feminists in general. You mean?
Yeah, no, the feminists. Yeah.
Or the feminists or the anti-feminists? Oh no, you.
No, not the No, the feminists were too toxic. It's just a very toxic topic. Right. And because I've got a daughter, I'm teaching her the egalitarian way that my grandparents had, that my parents have, that I try and have.
That's a really interesting thing, because I always say that as well, that egalitarianism is like equality and stuff like this, but I think traditionalism was also a form of egalitarianism in the past. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that was equality for then. It doesn't work now, okay, maybe, but it is a form of equality, but people don't classify traditional gender roles as... No.
I think only because I think they've never been in it, or they have a very wrong view of it.
Right. I think people have a very wrong view of it. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So when our grandparents used to look after my brother and I, our grandmothers ran the household. Like, my grandmothers don't, when it's business, my grandmothers never interfered with work. And when it comes to the household, my grandfathers never interfered with the household. It's not really
a division of labor. I agree. It was a division of labor, and women had the labor in this section, childcare or whatever, and men had extra labor in this section, which would have been providing.
Exactly.
So it was just, you do extra here, you do extra here, we come together, and this is our equality for today, for what we can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow's a brand new day.
So. Right. And you see, women were forced into that role because of nature. I think feminism totally misplaces the blame, in that they blame society and they blame men for women having been forced into the role of childcare and the home, or whatever. But it had nothing to do with men. It had nothing to do with misogyny. It had nothing to do with society. It had nothing to do with patriarchy or anybody being mean. It was a nature-based thing, in that women are the ones who breastfeed children, become pregnant, and have a lot of different things that naturally bond them or bind them in a biological way to the children. So the oppressors of women were never men. It was nature,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And back then it was, women had the right to marry or not. And if they didn't want to be in it, they didn't have to be in it. Just my grandparents loved it. They loved looking after their husbands. They loved looking after their children and their grandchildren. It was all, like you said, it was all equal. And then the feminists came along and ruined all that.
Yeah. Right. And the thing is, like, I understand why changes had to be made, because technology opened up new worlds and everything changed. So we had to change everything so that women went out into the world and everything changed. That's fine. But my issue, really, the core issue is how they brought about that change was by saying it was patriarchy, it was men, women were oppressed, it was unequal, it was totally unfair to women. And I think that is so unfair to men, because the oppression didn't come from men. And it's really important where it is important where we say this oppression came from. Traditional gender roles were oppressive. They were oppressive to women and to men because many women and many men didn't like that. But the oppression on the part of women specifically came from nature. It came from real biological things, and there were reasons why women had to be homemakers that had to do with pregnancy, the aftermath of pregnancy, breastfeeding, and the things associated to that. There's so many little things that are associated to that women don't consider because we have technology that totally makes those things invisible.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you were giving birth and you had natural birth after natural birth, if you had 2 or 3 of those, you had problems with peeing yourself and stuff like this. You had so many little problems that we can deal with today, but we couldn't deal with 200 years ago. And
no, we should be blessed rather than bitching about it.
Exactly, but we look back at it and we say this was oppression. It wasn't oppression, and it was oppression if you want to call it that, fine. But it didn't have anything to do with men. I mean, the oppression.
It was biological oppression.
It was biological oppression, and it's really important for people to put the blame on the right thing, because we are in a society where even at university level, we are allowing people to put the blame on men for something that absolutely had nothing to do with men.
No. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, the system of traditional gender roles, or patriarchy as they call it, is something that, one, came from nature, and two, it oppressed both men and women. First of all, everybody was oppressed. Women were oppressed, men were oppressed. It was just a box that was uncomfortable for a lot of people. And it came from nature. It was unfortunate. We're coming out of it, but just tell the truth about what it was instead of blaming men for no good reason and having people feel like, oh, men historically were just so bad to women. No, the system was a form of egalitarianism. It doesn't seem so today because we can't see the realities that the people faced, but it was a form of equality where men took on more work in that part of the thing, and women took on more work in that part of the whole thing. Yeah. Division of labor that made sense for the time. Okay, because there was a lot of work to get done, and that was the most efficient way to get it done for many people.
Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And men are a lot physically stronger than women, so it only makes sense they do the physical labor, I guess you could say.
Right.
And women, we're biologically, I don't know, I mean, if you want to do anything, blame it on the higher power. We're the ones that give birth, we're the ones who breastfeed. It's only natural that we do the house, the house side of things.
Yeah, the child care, and then the house thing came in because we were at home anyway. So,
exactly.
I mean, because we were with the kids had to be at home. They had to be in the safe place,
one place safe. And they need to be fed, so...
Yeah, and we had problems that women don't acknowledge. Feminism never acknowledges these biological realities. I see them time and time again talk about what women faced, and this law and that law, and how men could have beaten women, and they put something over the woman's head, and they did all these evil things to women, which half of it is not even true, because the laws that they quote, yes, they were terrible to women, but they were, at the same time, there were terrible laws that existed against men. They just don't. They just close. My eyes are closed when the laws are bad for men. My eyes are open when the laws were bad for women. Right? But okay. So they talk a lot about all these laws and everything was bad for women, but they don't acknowledge just this simple fact that, the oppression came from nature. There were realities that forced women to stay at home. They were,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should talk. Maybe I should talk about that to my feminists.
Yeah.
That I've known. About biological. It's more biological oppression than men oppression.
Right, and everyone was just coping, with stuff.
Exactly.
I'm sure that
like
men.
the Great Depression.
Yeah, men also didn't like this patriarchy. I mean, of course, patriarchy men also are happy to be free of all of that. It is
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, not to say that I hate. I'm a traditionalist, so I'm fine with
Oh yeah.
yeah. I mean, personally, I mean, I understand for society that many people don't like that. So yes, fine. But personally,
Yeah.
I'm fine with traditional.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
yeah, I'm fine with the traditionalism. I mean, I'm right now in a traditional relationship because, well, we prefer it that way.
yeah. Same. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, and I think there are many people who would choose that, but it also is connected to, well, maybe not, but a little bit connected to whether or not you have children. I think, um,
yeah, that's true.
and how many, because when people have
Yeah,
much less children, then the traditional relationship really does probably become less practical than
yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Like I've always wanted 2 children, but unfortunately, biologically, my body just went nope. So we've
yeah,
only got one.
yeah. Of course, people can still choose it. There are many people who don't have children and they still have a traditional relationship, and that's fun. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
everyone should be entitled to do, whatever they want and just find
yeah.
happiness
Just
in yeah.
don't spread lies and toxic. Yeah, don't spread toxic lies and
Right, about men
shove it down
and
our throats.
exactly, and don't tell women how to live in that, to tell them that their relationship is toxic or whatever. Don't tell women how to live just because you don't prefer it, because
Exactly.
that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. I mean, also they're afraid of men, so they're afraid of women depending on men. That's also a part of it. But
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so that's also a part of it. They want a one woman. But
Yeah,
yeah. So, I guess from a sisterhood point of view, that's a good thing. Um but the thing is that a lot of it is just they don't prefer that lifestyle and they don't like men. So, you know, yeah. It's hard to draw the lines where everything is. But the point
yeah. There's
is,
always a line.
yeah, there's diversity, and
Yeah, exactly.
some people are going to prefer this way, some people are going to prefer that way, and I think feminism needs to acknowledge that diversity. They spend a lot of time
Hmm.
looking at the fact that the women hate patriarchy, but they're not acknowledging the diversity of the women who were okay, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to broaden their horizons rather than just say what they think is good to say.
Okay, well, the time is up, so that's the end of the interview. But thanks a lot. I really appreciate you
It's all right.